And there was an editorial of Steve Strange in there. And he was walking through a supermarket he had a walking stick. He was dressed like crazy, some flamboyant thing. And I kind of thought to myself, my God, it doesn't actually matter. You don't have to conform. You don't have to follow any rules. You can just be yourself.
I think when you can confidently be yourself, you're going to be in a better place. It's when we're pretending to be something that we're not, or we're feeling pressured into being a certain way. That was just a little snippet there of today's episode where I discussed fashion trends with fashion trend forecaster Dawn Pedersen from Trendzine. It's a really interesting chat about how we are so massively influenced today by street style and the welcome return of personal style. So people putting things together in a really interesting way, which is a huge part of Dawn's work and how she forecasts trends. We talked as well about the evolution of fashion, so we weren't just looking forward, but we just had a bit of a chat about how fashion has changed so much over the decades and how you can look at a photograph and tell which decade it's from just by what someone is wearing. We're both really excited about personal style and how we are influenced by street style, and Dawn shares her own style story and what she was influenced by and how she loves to dress as well. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hello and welcome back to the Style Stories podcast. It's your host here, Lisa Gilby, and today I'm joined by Dawn Pedersen. Dawn is the founder of Trendzine, which is a fashion trend forecasting business. Now, we're going to be talking about that, and Dawn's going to introduce and just explain a bit more about that in a second. It is predicting fashion trends, and we're going to be talking about that today, but also we're going to be talking about how we are influenced with our fashion in today's world. It's changed. The landscape has changed. Obviously, we're in a digital landscape now, but it used to be the magazines that dictated how we got dressed. You know, Vogue was the Bible, and now we're influenced by real life people. So anyone really could become an influencer, and street style is a huge influence on how we get dressed today. So I find all that really fascinating. So welcome, Dawn. Thanks so much for joining me today. Could we just kick off with a bit of an intro about what you do and how you got into your role and your job doing fashion trend forecasting?
I started my career, first of all, I went to study fashion and textiles at the Northern School of Art, and then from there I had a fantastic placement at Body Map, and this was the 80s. Body Map were everything. They were huge then. And that really was a great introduction into how design rooms worked and how fashion designers put shows together. And that inspired me to start my own label in Manchester. And that sounds really glamorous and like I knew what I was doing, but I was literally kind of making clothes in the evening and sitting at a stall in Affleck's Palace selling the clothes in the daytime. So it wasn't, I didn't put enough thought into it. It wasn't sustainable. I couldn't keep that up. So, a friend of mine was moving to London, and she'd started working for suppliers, and I followed her and kind of did the same thing. So we were both working. So if you imagine retailers and manufacturers, suppliers are the people in the middle, the companies that work in the middle. So retailers don't deal, usually the big retailers don't deal directly with manufacturers. They'll use a supplier in between. Yeah. So you make ranges, get samples made, and then you organize all the manufacturing side of things. So that was my introduction into commercial fashion and the industry, the way the industry worked. And then from there, I had a break. That was the kind of turning point, really. So I had a break where I had my two little girls, and I was looking around for something to do part-time, so then I found a job with a fashion trend forecasting company. Someone phoned me up and said, Dawn, there's a great job going in design. I know you're a great design illustrator. And so I got this job, and that was like a great moment. It was such a turning point. I realized that this world that I'd kind of stumbled into really was what I wanted to do. It had everything, all the elements, I could really, have a lot of freedom with design. And so after that, I started my own business. It was 1998. My husband said he was dying to get into something online. So we decided to take that kind of concept of the fashion forecasting online.
Wow, and here you are. But I mean, that was 98. So wow, yeah, that was early online business.
Yeah, no, we were one of the first people to kind of have a fashion website up there.
That was online. I mean, my first question is, what is Body Map? Can you
Oh,
tell us?
Body Map. So they were a great company. So Stevie Stewart and David Horler started this great brand it was a lot of body wear, as the name suggests. And it was just very fashionable. So when I dressed at one of their shows, Boy George was one of the models. It was all like all the people in the 80s who were, dancers, and I don't know, it was just like a great energy, and dressing at their shows and things was just fantastic.
And it was just, so that's like a label of clothes.
Yeah, I mean, there's been exhibitions at the V&A with their stuff, and I think at the moment with the Lee Bowery exhibition at
Yeah.
the V&A, there'll be some of Body Map stuff there.
Interesting. I mean, because I know that in the 80s, we, like, Britain were really leading the world with pop culture, weren't we? Like, it was I think most of the top charters at that time were British, Boy George and Spandau Ballet, and they had all the Club Kids and Lee Bowery and
Yes, yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And I know that, fashion is really tied changes and feelings, and I guess that's, we're going to touch on that as well. We're going to touch on a bit of the history of fashion, even though neither of us are experts at fashion history. It still feeds into what we're
It's
talking
still
about
interesting.
and how we've ended up where we are with the street style revolution. But I mean, how would you describe, if you can just explain to us listening who don't understand trend forecasting, what does that mean? What is it? So how far advanced do you do it? And how does it really shape, how we get dressed? How important is street style in that? I have so many questions. Sorry, I'll let you go.
Oh my God, so many questions
I
you're
know.
throwing at me. So we forecast trends about a year to 18 months in advance of the season. And forecasting is just projecting forward ideas. So the trends that we're looking for, we're researching, and we're going through a lot of data, a lot of images to try and find kind of signposts and signals, things that come together to form a trend, similar things that designers are doing. If you can imagine, like, how many ideas that designers across, different countries are putting out there. Trends are kind of a way for us to see that information in kind of sound bites so that we can make more sense of them. And so all this collected information is kind of then analyzed, and then we're projecting forward what we think will happen in that time frame, and trying to inspire our customers with new ideas and different ways of looking at things, and showing them what might influence fashion. As you say, street style is a big influence on trends. Trends emerge from different places. So you've got, catwalk influences, you've got styles that emerge from the street, and these they can be intertwined. And also street style can be a kind of more styling as well. So it's the way individuals are interpreting what they're seeing maybe on the catwalks and putting things together, especially in London, because London's such a great street style scene. Will add their individual touch to looks and a bit of personality. They'll have fun with things. Yeah, we get a lot of inspiration from there, and it's inspiration that then we pass on to our customers.
I mean, I love the fact that street style is, because this is something as well I talk about on the podcast, is that opposites attract things. mixing everything up, like pairing, and I read this on your trend report as well, on Trendzine's report as well, about just putting unexpected combinations together makes a really interesting outfit. Street style isn't formulaic. It's not dressing by numbers. Do you know what I mean? It's kind
No.
of, and I feel like, sort of when the magazine sort of ruled the roost, it was sort of very much, this is in, this is how you wear it, blah blah blah. But street style, so they'll pair, I don't know, size leather jacket with a beautiful delicate quinned skirt that's like transparent and feminine, and then but you've got some really mad chunky boots on with that, and a big masculine shirt, and it's sort of really playing with, it's a rebellion in a way, I
Oh,
think.
it's just so interesting, and it's always surprising. I mean, I've been working in fashion for so long, but it's so refreshing that you can be surprised by the way people put things together and inspired by it. And it triggers new ideas and new ways of looking at things. And there's, on a personal level, there's always like, oh, I could do that. I've got that in my wardrobe. I could mix that with that thing and, make it look fresh and relevant and now. And, it's inspiring.
Because if you think about it like that, it could be endlessly fresh, because people are so nuanced and so different, and we're so influenced by so many different things in our lives. The designers aren't just dictating how we get dressed. I mean, the designers have a vision, don't they? And they're like, wear this, whatever. And each designer has their own kind of vibe and everything. But then it's on you. People wouldn't necessarily go out wearing a head to toe look from one designer.
And it doesn't look authentic, because what happens with street style in some of the cities, especially like Milan and Paris, and with the bigger name designers, that they will just send out all their clothes to all the influencers and all the editors. And so you'll get head to toe looks, which are lovely, but they don't look authentic. There's nothing of the person showing through. That's why I like London, and that's why I like Copenhagen's quite unique as well. But yeah, I know what you mean about the head to toe looks. No, we don't. We mix things up.
Yeah, mix things up, because I mean, I get dressed through how I feel on a day-to-day basis. I would never, unless I had a really important kind of presentation to do, I wouldn't really put aside some clothes to wear the next day. I would always get up in the morning. I do always get up in the morning and think, right, what's the weather? How do I feel? And I think that's another thing with street style, is dressing to how you want to feel and how you want to be perceived. I mean, this is, how we should all get dressed, rather than dressing how we think we should get dressed.
Yes.
So I think you should in the same sentence, but hopefully that in two different ways, that it's kind of, the feeling is everything, and showing personality in how you look. And that's why street style is so influential today. I'd love to talk though about some pivotal moments. This is where you and I are both going into, we are not experts in history, but I have put this idea into AI to see what it comes up with for pivotal shifts in fashion. Because if you look through history, you can always tell a point in history. So you could look at a picture and say, oh, that's the 60s. You could look at some flares and, colours and go, oh, that's from the 70s. It really does tell you where we are. And people have been using fashion for centuries to show authority, to show wealth, to show status, to show who they are, and to express themselves. So I just wanted to run through a few of the shifts in fashion. 1920s, for example. Before that, everyone wore a suit, right? Everyone was in tailoring. People wore that kind of attire. It was all very restrictive, formal. And then Coco Chanel came along. Women used to wear corsets, for God's sake.
Yeah. Did you go to the exhibition, the Coco Chanel?
I didn't go.
And you realize how influential she was, and it's great to look back and see how individuals really had an impact on the fashion scene. Yeah.
Because she invented like the little black dress. So she introduced the concept of dressing practically, rather than dressing with trousers, kind of masculine tailoring. So she freed women up a lot. And then we had the 1960s youthquake moment, which I've never heard of, youthquake. I knew about Mary Quant and the miniskirts, you know, all of that stuff. And it was the sexual revolution, you know, women dressing in a much more provocative way, I guess, you know, able to wear the miniskirts and things like
Well,
that.
just the freedom to, you know, show yourself. And that was like you say, it was the sexual kind of awakening, and the short skirts and the braless, you know, look, and the very kind of, I mean, we all look back at decades and see, the older you get, the more points of reference you have, I suppose, as well, you know, and see patterns that have evolved over time. It's much easier to look back and recognize shapes and silhouettes as being part of different eras than it is to look forwards and or even in the moment that we're living in and say, yeah, what does define, you know, the now, or, you know, this decade, and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what does, I'd be interested. That's a great point, actually. I'd love to talk about what you would think, what you think has defined this decade. Because, and then we've got 1980s. I think 1980s was an awful era for fashion. I think a lot of people agree with me. I don't know if you, power dressing, dynasty,
Well, yeah,
shoulder pads.
those elements, but there was, you know, also you know, the music scene, which was different to all that power
Of
dressing,
course.
and so you had, you know, the new romantics and the beginning, you know, the punk era and all that. So
True.
there was subcultures, although we kind of think shoulder pads, bright colors, and because we're thinking of references from maybe films or certain mindsets, you know, women, you know, in the workplace, that kind of thing, and looking all powerful. There was also lots of subcultures happening at that time. So yeah, it's kind of, it's not just one, a decade isn't just made up of like singular looks. It's a mixture of things.
Well, I suppose we always look at the youth as well, don't we? And like the subculture thing is so important. I mean, we are a youth obsessed culture, which I think really kicked off in the 60s, didn't it? That kind of.
Yeah, but I'd like to think that's changing. I mean, you do see more and more older people models on the catwalk. You're seeing them in beauty adverts now, and so it is shifting. That's one of the things that I think we'll look back at this decade and we'll say, oh, you know, it was very inclusive of shapes and ages, and yeah, just lots of things.
That's really nice to hear, because it's good to hear some positive things about getting older. I mean, that's, you know, that's the reason I started this podcast, was because of people, because of all that. You can't wear this over 40 and all that nonsense. So that was the body map time, like the 80s. There was all the subcultures going on, and obviously we were leading the world at the time in pop. TV was great then in the 80s, actually, like, you know, Pretty in Pink and all the films, the Goonies, all that kind of time. I do look back fondly.
See, I've just changed your mind in the space
You
of a.
have. Casualisation. Right, so basically we've gone from power dressing. So we started in 1920s, everyone was in their suits and stuff. And then we've gone into casualisation. So streetwear and grunge, that dominated. Again, that's really tied to music, isn't it? Because there was Nirvana were hugely influential, and Sonic Youth, and lots of different bands. And like you just said as well, punk. This is, I mean, why I'm so interested in this as well is because when I talk about people finding their personal style, I think it's really helpful to try to do a bit of a timeline of your influences, because I really do think that influences how you get dressed and how you want to get dressed as well, if you want to be authentically yourself, you know, and really express yourself. I saw a documentary about Vogue with Anna Wintour, and she hated grunge because it was just, to her, styleless, like, because it's just scruffy, isn't it? It's kind of like being scruffy. That's
Yeah, it was about lots of layers, and yeah, but there's often reactions to, so if you kind of think of all the like we were talking about the 80s and the power dressing and the suits and things. There's often polar opposite to that, a reaction to things, punk and, I don't know, new romantics. There's shifts, and it's almost like we get tired of one thing and we do a complete, 360 into, something else completely different, because humans are like that. We like to see, different things. We get bored of the same thing. We get bored of the same look, get bored of the stuff in our wardrobes.
Yeah, true. And change keeps things fresh. But I know what you mean. I think I mentioned this when we spoke on the phone. Mentioned this to you before, that just after the pandemic, and this is probably interesting from a trend forecasting point of view, because there wasn't street style going on in the pandemic because we were on lockdown. So obviously there wasn't that, visual reference or anything. And straight after, everything went so vanilla and bland. Like everything was so beige after lockdown. So people were just wearing beige stuff. And I remember it seemed to be there was no flair. All the creativity had been sucked away, and there was just, everyone was dressing by numbers again. I really, really noticed that. It's definitely got a lot more vibrant in the last few years.
I mean, on the one hand, I think we were just wanting to cocoon ourselves and take care of ourselves. And we were hankering for kind of soft fabrics and easy, comfortable shapes. And that's kind of lingered as well through athleisure and the way we kind of incorporate sportswear into a lot of our looks. But also there was a reaction against kind of being in lockdown, where we did want to express ourselves. So people did come out of lockdown and really go like crazy. They were dying to dress up again, or people would have Zoom calls and Friday nights where they dressed up and, kind of
remember.
Things definitely kind of shifted through that time.
And now we're in the digital age, so 2000s to present. So social media has democratized trend setting. So I think that's hugely impactful, because I think what that's done, like we've talked at the beginning, is taken power away from traditional magazines. Would you agree with that? Because we're more influenced by...
Yes, definitely. I mean, we're more influenced by social media, and a lot of magazines are online now. Well, all magazines are online.
Yeah.
Social media has just really made everything accessible to anybody and given a voice to anybody too, which is great, because you can always find your community out there. You can always find your people. So we can follow people our age. We can follow stylists and, kind of be influenced by them. And it's great. It gives us a lot of choice.
But would you say there's any particular look that represents this decade that we're in now?
It has gone individual in terms of, I think, the way people style and wear things and the way they accessorize. But if you kind of step back from things, there are general overarching trends happening right now. There's a trend of volume that runs through trousers, through the width of jeans, or through the bagginess or blouson shapes. And there's also trends in proportion. So we're tending to, the waistline is kind of risen to crop tops, and by that I don't mean like belly revealing tops. I just mean like tops that kind of hit at the top of a high waistband on a trouser, or we're getting that line from tucking tops in, or so there's kind of this feeling of volume, which kind of started to happen a few seasons back with big sleeves, and then it kind of moved to, blouson, and then it's kind of happening in trousers, and the volume has been happening through shoes as well, through these like huge chunky trainers and things. So yeah, I think that's one of the big defining kind of overarching trends that we're in right now.
Yeah, because we've dropped, so skinny jeans are kind of not in vogue at the moment, are they? But
Gen Zers would argue that they're coming back.
Oh, really? I mean, I like them with boots. I know lots of people will, they won't let their skinny jeans go, and that's absolutely fine. No one needs to be, super trendy. You've just got to wear what you love. That's the point. But I've also, when you talked about shoes, because I know Chloe's done a very influential fashion show recently. All that boho is back, because we had boho in the noughties, didn't we? And Sienna Miller was like the
Hmm.
poster girl for boho, and Kate Moss a bit as well. But now, so they've got the huge platforms. I mean, I would break my ankle, honestly, if I tried, attempted to walk anywhere, even to the top of my hallway in those. So good luck to anyone who can do that. I think you're amazing.
Hmm.
But yeah, those sort of big platforms. And also, have you seen those fluffy shoes? There's lots of like really like almost like the Cookie Monster, like just big sort of fluffy shoes. I can't think which designer has done those.
Oh,
But
you see some great ones around Fashion Week, and there are ones that kind of appear 3D printed with like bubble soles, and yeah, there's an animal feet and all sorts of like funny things. Yeah, yeah. No, there are some influencers who come to Fashion Week who are just like they have so much fun with their clothes, and it's
which is
great to see.
amazing because those tabby shoes are in, the ones with the toe.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, I don't know which designer that who did the tabbies, but
It's
I think
it's
you did it. Yeah.
Margiela.
Oh, Magellan. Yeah. Tibby does a bit of, I think, that kind of thing as well. I think Tibby's brilliant. Amy Sminovich, I don't know if you know her on Instagram. She does a lot of
Mm,
talking through how she wears things and why, and
mm,
playing with
mm,
proportions, like you say, but all about oversized proportions
mm.
because it makes an interesting look, doesn't it? Instead of that sort of.
No, it does. I mean, we're in a way, we're taking up space. We're saying, here I am. This is, larger than life kind of thing. I'm confident in my presence. I'm wearing kind of, it says things, I think, volume. And it also has a bit of a touch of luxury as well, because we're not like I was just going to say jeggings, where the amount of fabric in kind of some things just feels so cheap sometimes, or but when you're generous with fabric, and it comes across as a more luxurious
Yeah.
statement, if you know what I mean.
More of
That
a
makes sense.
statement, definitely, and it does again. It's going back to that almost that feeling of rebellion as well. It's kind of not, if you wrote down on paper how someone should dress according to their body shape and rules, it
Mm-hmm.
breaks rules, and that's why it feels fresh and interesting. And I think,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, fashion should be fun. It is that feeling of expression. I think it does take a lot of confidence. These street style people, the people who go to Fashion Week and have all this fun, they're super confident to do that. I always think when I see someone who's really kind of out there and how they're dressed is how interesting they look. So interesting. Like I'd love to have a conversation with them because I think they've got a different. They're showing me that they've got a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I do. I have conversations with them all the time. I'll walk up to someone on the street and say, "You look great. I love your, fill in the gap kind of thing." But I can see, because I take photographs at fashion weeks, I like to be there and I like to see and get a feel for the atmosphere there. And you can see people coming from a distance, and you're not sure what it is about. Is it the confident way they're walking, or is it something about what they're wearing? But you almost don't have time to analyze it in the moment. You just have to take the image and maybe look at it later, and then it'll be revealed, god, yeah, the way she was, or he was wearing that thing. But it's no, people really do catch your eye, and sometimes you have to talk to people to you learn so much from about new labels and where people are getting their inspiration from as well.
I could watch street style people all day because of that, because it's so fascinating to think where their thought process of putting that outfit together, but how they've balanced things together, and it just works. So there was that image
Mm-hmm.
that you sent me of the woman with the floral wide leg trousers.
Yes. Yeah.
She looked wicked. She looked so cool. Do you know which designer those trousers were? It was amazing.
Yeah, it was a Loewe.
Oh, wow, yeah.
trouser, and the fabric is kind of like the fabric that you'd upholster a nice cushion in or something, like a kind of tapestry, that kind of construction with a floral pattern on it. But it was the cut of the trouser which was super huge, and I'd seen it on the catwalk, and I didn't automatically think that I'd be seeing it on the street, because that's the kind of test of things sometimes, whether they work in real life. On the catwalk, you can have lots of conceptual ideas, and you see them and you think, wow, they're amazing, but they don't always translate to things that can be worn. But she was wearing this one item, and then she was wearing an oversized jacket that was just kind of pulled on her shoulders, and a baggy top, and looked amazing with her long grey hair. And yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Long grey hair. She just looked really striking, and the colour, the sort of tapestry of the
really.
trousers really fitted in. I know that Jonathan Anderson, isn't it, that designed
Yes.
for them, who's leaving there. But it's, yeah, really, really amazing. Interestingly, so all of this amazing creativity and all of that, I actually, in my job, I don't have clients that would want to dress in this really. Lots of them are corporate and, professionals, and they want to just look good at work and look professional and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get that much time to do like hugely creative things. That might be why it's still creative, but it's a
Of course
different
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
perspective. It's not, dressing someone to go on the front row at street style fashion week. It's definitely a
Mm-hmm.
different thing. I'm sort of dressing more with lifestyle in mind and what they need. So, which takes me to you and your style story, Dawn, because I said that I was going to ask you about this on the podcast when we chatted. As someone who is a fashion trend forecaster, could you have forecasted your own move through your life with how you get dressed? Have you been hugely influenced by music, where you live? Have you stuck to a formula? Do you like to be comfortable? What's your kind of evolution?
God, wow. I've always been influenced by music, definitely. I think I saw a Face magazine, I don't know, one of the first ones that came out, and it had I'm from Bolton near Manchester, and I got my hands on this Face magazine, and there was an editorial of Steve Strange in there, and he was walking through a supermarket with, I don't know, he had a walking stick. He was dressed like crazy, some flamboyant thing, and I kind of thought to myself, my God, it doesn't actually matter. You don't have to conform. You don't have to follow any rules. You can just be yourself. And that kind of blew my mind. I don't know. Things like that have an influence on me, I think. I do like to see people who appear not to care what other people think. I think it's so refreshing. I'm not one of those people. I do care what people think. I wear a lot of black, and definitely when I'm working doing street style photography, and probably a lot when I'm at home as well, analyzing things. If I'm working on colors, I don't want to be distracted by my own colors. I kind of want to be a blank slate and think outside myself. So if I'm taking photographs, I'm wearing black because all the photographers wear black. They don't want to get in other people's backgrounds wearing bright colors. It's kind of
Like blending
it's an
in,
unwritten rule that
right?
you don't wear like neon orange or something, because you'll be in other people's shots in the background and distract from the
So it's
pictures.
etiquette.
It is etiquette. There are always exceptions, but yeah, whatever. But yeah, so I tend to wear a lot of black. I was talking to you about this. I used to have like a black, severe kind of bob hair. I mean, I've had different hairstyles, but that was such an easy statement hairstyle. And I think it was when I decided to let my natural grey come through. So I dyed it for ages and almost forgotten how much grey was actually there. And then when I let it kind of come through, I had to like have a severe crop to get it growing through. But then I had to look at my wardrobe again. Obviously black is like that's fine with grey hair. But the colors that I had in there didn't look as they did with my other hairstyles. So I had a big kind of wardrobe upheaval then, and kind of threw away a lot of, I don't know, bland colours maybe that I had that I felt suited me before and didn't suit me anymore, that kind of thing. I haven't done that colour analysis on myself.
Yeah, interesting. Because I mean, was it quite liberating doing the grey thing, going grey and stopping dyeing your hair?
Oh God, yeah, it was. It really was. I mean, I couldn't have kept it up. It was just too much maintenance, and I didn't feel there was a big wave of people going into their natural
Yeah.
color. I think it was to do with authenticity, the feeling that we should all be more ourselves, and yeah.
I think when you can confidently be yourself, you're going to be feel in a better place. It's when we're pretending to be something that we're not, or we're feeling pressured into being a certain way that, it doesn't feel good. So I know that one day I'm definitely going to be following suit and going for the grey, but I'm not ready yet. So do you have like a go-to kind of outfit? Do you wear, are you jeans girl? Are you quite casual?
Yeah, casual, sporty, I guess. As in, like, I'm not running miles or anything. I'm just, but I'll wear like I don't know, if I'm wearing a jacket with a collar, a revere, I like to maybe have a hoodie over that, just to kind of say, no, I'm not trying to be smart. I'm
Right.
also, kind of counterbalancing things. So I really, in the summer, I love a statement skirt,
Yeah.
but then the top half might be a really casual or t-shirty or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got the same sort of vibe as me. I actually really dislike feeling smart and looking smart. I have to have
Yeah,
something.
you've
Something
got to
has to be
throw
wrong.
something in there that's off, that off balances things, that says I'm more than the one thing that I'm dressing like. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, just
Yeah,
I think jewelry or accessories do that as well for a lot of people. I think that you can express yourself through, different kind of necklaces, earrings, and, um,
I, I mean, the impact these little things can have. A
yeah.
pair of earrings can totally and utterly transform an entire look. Just putting on a pair of glasses. Although my brothers told me at the weekend I look like Frank from EastEnders in my glasses.
No, I love those. I like
Yeah,
those.
sort of a
Yeah.
strong kind of, a good pair of glasses can totally transform a look as well. But I mean, on Saturday, I
Hmm.
went out for a girls' lunch up in town. I had a pair of gold tailored trousers. So that's already a bit of a juxtaposition because you've got tailored trousers but gold. So they weren't bought from Suzanne. I love them. And I put on a sort of shirt, so it's like a white shirt, and I was like, no, this is wrong. The trousers are tailored, the shirt's formal. This is not working. So then just
Mm-hmm.
pulled a t-shirt out of my drawer,
Yeah.
put a t-shirt on, done. Then it was right. Even though it looked perfectly good before, it was
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. No, it works in menswear too, with tailored styles when they just throw, a sweater or a t-shirt on underneath a jacket. Because they're taking away that shirt, it makes it less formal, a bit more accessible and casual.
Definitely. And a pair of maybe a men's formal trousers just worn with a sweatshirt instead
Mm,
of wearing the formal
mm,
trousers with the shirt. I just, all that mixing up. And that's exactly what street style is. I guess it really helps to tell us the mood that people are in as well. Like I said at the end,
mm.
earlier on, the mood after lockdown was all wanting just to feel comfortable, and everything was very plain. We had nowhere to go. We hadn't been anywhere for ages, so there was no
Mm,
real sort of
mm.
influence there. But now it's all massively changing, and the trend at the moment is hugely oversized. It's been a fascinating chat today. I've loved that. That was so
Yeah,
interesting.
that was so good.
You've actually started another business.
Has started a business.
Yeah.
We wanted to design something that would be super long lasting, something that you'd buy once and keep forever. We chose an apron. And so what bothered us about aprons, we had these long discussions. I mean, over the space of a year, it took for us to kind of really fine tune this design. But you know what? It's really irritating about aprons with the twisted straps, and they look great when you take them home from the shop, but then you wash them and the straps are all kind of twisted. And also the strap that goes around the neck always kind of pulls. So we designed this like really cool crossback apron that you just slip on, and thought a lot about the pocket positionings and things. But the straps are actually like triple thickness, so they lie flat and they're on your shoulders, and they don't give you that kind of neck feeling or interfere with your clothing. So that's available in David Mellor stores at the moment.
And what's the design on the front? Do you have certain?
Yeah, there's a square pocket here on the front at the top that has like a channel for, if you're a chef, a tasting spoon or a pen or something. And then there are two very deep side pockets as well for lots of things. But we're working on lots of other things.
Stylish and practical aprons. There you go. Brilliant. I wanted to mention that at the end. Thank you so much. That was a really fascinating chat. I'm going to go off and look at some more street style now. Thanks, Dawn.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for joining me.
Bye. Bye.
I enjoyed that chat. A massive thank you to Dawn Pedersen for joining me on the Style Stories podcast today. I will put a link in the show notes to her aprons that she's just launched with her daughters that are available at the David Mellor stores. Coming up on the Style Stories podcast, I'm going to be talking about, in the next few episodes, how to get a really great smart casual wardrobe, particularly if you work in an office environment, the pieces that I think that you need in the wardrobe, and how to really nail smart casual. I'm also going to be doing an episode on event dressing as well. We have lots of summer events coming up. Also, I'm going to be joined by Danielle from My Circular Wardrobe. Danielle founded My Circular Wardrobe. She resells people's cast-offs, and it's a huge booming industry, and it's obviously a lot better for the planet as well to wear things that are secondhand and pre-loved. So she's going to be joining me to talk about that. So make sure you hit the follow button so you don't miss any future episodes, and please do leave me a kind review. I would be so grateful. Thanks very much for joining me today, and I will see you next time.